Right everyone, it is Finn here and welcome to my Afcon Round 2 qualification predictions, where of course in today's video I'm going to be predicting every single game for Round 2 of the Afcon qualifiers. Now of course, quick disclaimer before we jump into my predictions for Round 2 is the fact that this video is being recorded during Round 1 of the predictions, meaning that during the time of recording, not every single game has been played in Round 1 of the qualifiers. So of course, with that being said, jumping straight into my Round 2 qualification predictions, we start off with the Central African Republic versus Ghana. Now, at the time of recording, these two teams have both played their first games. Of course, the Central African Republic lost 2-1 to the likes of Angola after taking a 1-0 lead in the first half. But of course, looking at them, it ended up slipping. Angola ended up getting 2 second half goals, and of course, they ended up losing their 3 points. Looking at the likes of Ghana, they picked up a very comfortable 3-0 win versus Madagascar. I mean, I wouldn't expect anything less, but of course, looking at these two teams so far in the competition, I have to say that Ghana by far look like the better team, and I am going to have to give them, am I going to give them another comfortable win? You know what, I think I'm going to give them quite a comfortable 3-1 win. Of course, looking at Ghana, they did pick up a clean sheet in the first game. They would like to do it once again in their second game. Whether they'll end up doing that, we'll obviously have to wait and see, but as I said, looking at Ghana, such an impressive first game, and I do think they'll do it once again. Now of course, jumping into game number 2, as you can see on screen, we've got Botswana versus Tunisia. Now of course, looking at Botswana, they did lose the game 1-0 versus Libya. Now once again, I don't have high expectations for Botswana, to be honest with you.
Well, fuck you.
We're looking at Tunisia, although at the time of recording they haven't played their first game. As we know, Tunisia, a very strong African side. They've got some brilliant players in their squad. Of course, in recent tournaments over the last few years, they've really proven themselves to be a top quality team. So of course, these two teams going head to head, I can only see Tunisia winning this one, and they should win it at least 2-0, if not 3-0, to be honest with you. Now of course, jumping on to the next game, we've got Madagascar versus Angola. Now as I said, Angola did end up winning their first game versus the Central African Republic 2-1 due to 2 goals within the 70th minute to the 80th minute mark within that 10-minute gap. And of course, looking at Madagascar, they did get absolutely crumbled by the Black Stars of Ghana. Now of course, looking at Angola, one thing that I did say about them in my previous prediction video is the fact that I think that this team would totally be elevated if Helder Costa really contributes to this team, if he gets into form for his national team. And he did just that, as he did get an assist in the previous game.
I'm kind of a big deal.
So with Helder Costa in form, I do think Angola should be able to do it again versus Madagascar. I think Madagascar are going to go 2 games in a row without scoring a goal, as I do think Angola should win 2-0. Now of course, jumping into the next game, we've got Libya versus the Equatorial Guinea. Now of course, looking at Libya, they did obviously win their previous game 1-0, and looking at Equatorial Guinea, although they haven't played their first game yet, I've said this countless times since the Afcon competition ended in the beginning of the year, but they are a top quality team.
Well, this is awkward.
They've had some brilliant performances, and if they're able to do it once again, we could absolutely see them crush Libya. Once again, whether that's something that's going to end up happening, we are obviously going to have to wait and see. I do think it will be a very close game, because looking at Libya, in terms of their form at the moment, they are 3 wins and 2 losses in their last 5 games. You cannot underestimate them. But as I said, looking at Equatorial Guinea, their performances over the last few months, I do think that they should be able to take a 2-1 win, but once again, it is football, absolutely anything can happen. Now of course, moving on to Eswatini versus Burkina Faso. Both teams yet to play their first game, of course, once again. Maybe it has potential to be close in some people's eyes, but I just don't see it. Once again, just looking at Burkina Faso, the top quality players they have in their team, from Tapsoba to Kofi to Bertrand Traore, once again, if they all end up playing in this team versus Eswatini, which once again, we haven't seen too much of in recent times. Of course, they will be playing their first game versus Togo, so once again, whether they'll recover from that, we'll have to see. But I do think Burkina Faso should be able to win this one, and they should win it at least 2-0. As I said, they've got brilliant defense, brilliant attack, and I don't think they're going to lose the 3 points here. Moving on, we've got Cape Verde versus Togo. Now, this one I might put down as our first very close game that we've had so far. Of course, looking at Cape Verde, they had a relatively decent Afcon competition. No, they didn't advance too far in the competition as a whole, but once again, when the players stayed disciplined and they didn't get red cards, they had a pretty decent tournament overall. Obviously, looking at Togo, 6 games unbeaten at at the moment. Whether they're going to keep that versus the game versus Eswatini, we're going to have to wait and see. They could be 7 games unbeaten.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Going into this run versus Cape Verde, I do think it is going to be an extremely close game, and that is why I'm going to put down our first draw of the prediction video with a 1-1 draw. As I said, Togo's performances and their kind of form at the moment looking very, very solid. Cape Verde, a very, very solid team. When they go head to head, it will be a close one in my opinion. Moving on, we've got Zambia versus the Comoros Islands. Now, 2 teams that I think could have a really, really entertaining game. I feel like both teams are very, very entertaining on the attacking front. I feel like they're going to give it their absolute all, whether defensively they're going to be able to cope with one another. I mean, it genuinely could go either way in my opinion. Obviously, Zambia will be playing their first game versus the Ivory Coast, so they might be quite beaten down after that first game. Once again, I mean, I might be wrong by the time this video comes out, or by the time some people see it. Maybe Zambia would have absolutely crushed Ivory Coast, but a part of me does doubt that. Obviously, we saw the Comoros Islands, the way they played versus some of the top dogs in Afcon 2021. Once again, a team that you definitely cannot underestimate, but looking at these 2 teams, as I said, I feel like it could hold a surprise results, and as much as Comoros really surprised me at Afcon, I do think maybe Zambia could get a very entertaining 2-1 win. Once again, could go either way. Now, of course, a game that I personally don't think will go either way is going to be Rwanda versus Senegal.
No thanks, I choose life.
Now, of course, Senegal, looking at them as a whole, once again, I've said this on multiple occasions, but I think that they are going to do super well at the World Cup at the end of the year. I mean, obviously, everyone's going to be looking at good old Sadio Mane, as it is official that he will be leaving Liverpool at the end of the season, or he is already leaving Liverpool. So, of course, once again, a huge loss for Liverpool, but of course, I mean, he's not going to leave the Senegalese national team. It's a bit too late for that. As we know, Senegal, a top quality team, and no matter what you think of Rwanda, I mean, I'm pretty sure that they can have a few decent performances on their days, but compared to the likes of Senegal, let's be honest, Senegal will be untouchable, and they are going to win this pretty comfortably with a 3-0 win. Moving on, we've got Burundi versus Cameroon. Now, of course, looking at Burundi as a whole, once again, they've been in decent form as of late when it comes to wins, losses, and draws. I mean, they don't have the worst batch of performances compared to a lot of the other teams on this competition. But looking at Cameroon, obviously their first game would have been against Kenya, but that game was called off. So you know what, Cameroon do have the rested players. They've had a bit more time to practice. They are obviously a top quality team, came 3rd in the recent Afcon. So looking at these 2 teams, although I do believe in Burundi's ability, I do think Cameroon should win this one. Once again, whether they'll get a clean sheet, we did see that they struggled with that from time to time at Afcon. So I do think Cameroon will win it, but I think it's going to be 3-1 in Cameroon's favour. Obviously, Kenya versus Namibia has been called off. Once again, Kenya have been disqualified from the Afcon qualifiers. So, of course, we're going to have to move on to our next game, which is Uganda versus Niger. Now, of course, looking at both of these teams, I feel like they're both very similar in terms of form. But once again, just something about Niger really speaks to me, to be honest. Once again, towards the end of last year, they ended up picking an absolutely gigantic win versus Djibouti. And you know what? Once again, just looking at them on the attacking front, I feel like they've really showed some promise. And versus Uganda, I think that they are going to be totally relentless. Almost kind of Johnny Depp kind of relentless, if you consider Uganda to be Amber Heard. Which, I'm sorry, Uganda, I'm pretty sure that's a comparison that no one wants to hear.
I don't know. I think that's a bit dodgy, mate.
But of course, at the end of the day, I do think Niger are going to end up winning it, and I'm going to put forward a 2-1 win. Moving on, we've got Gabon versus Mauritania. Now, of course, once again, one of the big talking points for Gabon is the fact that they won't have Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, as he has retired from international football. Once again, I find it very, very odd that he's retired so early instead of playing another competition, but yet he refuses to retire any of his hairstyles. But at the end of the day, once again, we saw some top quality performances from Gabon at Afcon, even without their top quality players. And although Mauritania, once again, can have top quality performances, sorry, I feel like I'm saying that a lot in this video, although they can have really, really good days on the pitch, I do think Gabon will end up taking this one, and I'm going to put forward a 2-0 win. Moving on, we've got Congo versus Gambia. Now, the Gambia, once again, a team that, as I said, has impressed me on multiple occasions. Defensively, when they want to lock up, they lock up hardcore. On the attacking front, once again, they're really intelligent and smart in the way that they attack, and they've got a team that really works well together. And of course, looking at Congo, nothing bad against them. I also think that they've got a relatively good team that can perform really well from time to time. But looking at these two teams as a whole, I am going to have to give it to Gambia. And you know what? I'm going to give it a 3-0 win. I know, very convincing win, but once again, I've seen a lot from Gambia in recent years. Moving on, we've got Tanzania versus Algeria. Now, once again, Algeria yet to prove something since the recent Afcon. Obviously went out in a miserable fashion. And of course, lots of people are talking about the fact that Algeria has introduced a lot of new younger players to the squad. It is almost a new squad entirely. So whether that adapts into something that's brilliant or whether it adapts into something that's horrible, we're yet to wait and see. Obviously, neither of these two teams have played their first game yet. I do expect a lot from Algeria though. Once again, Tanzania have 1 or 2 brilliant players in their squad, but Algeria are the stronger team. They are playing Uganda in their first game, so they shouldn't be too tired. So I am going to give Algeria a 3-0 win. Riyad Mahrez and the boys better not let me down on that one. Moving on, we've got Benin versus Mozambique. Now, of course, looking at these two teams, looking at Benin, they will be playing Senegal in their first game, so they're probably going to be quite tired, unless they don't play their strongest team there. Obviously, looking at Mozambique, playing Rwanda in their first game. So, you know what, both of these two teams coming in totally different situations. I think Benin, once again, they might rest their squad so that they've got a stronger squad versus Mozambique to have a better chance to win.
Yeah. This is big brain time.
I do think that is something that is highly likely to happen. So of course, looking at these two teams, I do think Benin will end up playing the smart game and they will end up getting a 1-0 win. Moving on, we've got Sudan versus the DRC. Now, of course, looking at Sudan, as I said in my previous video, people
This is great banter. It really is.
People keep on telling me that I cannot underestimate Sudan, that they are a top quality team. Well, at the time of recording, still 12 games in a row without a win. And obviously, I mean, by the time this video comes out, they might be 13 games in a row without a win. But even if they end up getting a win, 1 win in their last 13 games, it's not impressive enough for me. And versus the DRC, who have some top quality talent, I do think DRC should be able to bury Sudan in the ground, and I think it is going to be a comfortable 3-1 win. Now, of course, as you can see here, we've got a few round 1 games. We're just going to brush over that as we have South Sudan versus Mali next. Now, once again, Mali have recently introduced the likes of Everton's Decore in the midfield, which, by the way, the fact that France haven't been able to capitalize and choose a player like Decore, once again, for years and years, he's been a top quality player. And if you put him next to the likes of Basuma, once again, as we saw in Mali's recent game, they've got such a good midfield now. And versus South Sudan, I do see them end up picking up a result, and I do see them getting a 1-0 win. Now, moving on to our last batch of round 2 games, we start off with Ethiopia versus Egypt. Now, once again, Ethiopia, not a bad football nation by any means, especially in the African continent, but versus Egypt, I feel like there can only be one winner versus the Afcon finalists from last year, as I do think Egypt should be able to pick up a very convincing 2-0 win. As we know, a lot of these African nations are resting their top players at the moment, but I don't see Egypt doing so. I think that they will play their strongest squad throughout the qualifiers, as they will want to qualify for the next Afcon, and I do think Egypt, as I said, probably gets a comfortable 2-0 win. Moving on, we've got Lesotho versus Ivory Coast. Now, of course, once again, Ivory Coast don't have too many worries, as the Afcon is going to be played in Cote d'Ivoire. So, I mean, at the end of the day, they've already qualified. So, of course, I mean, the qualification goes to the second best team in the table. But versus Lesotho, I just don't see Lesotho being the second best team, although, as I said, Ivory Coast have already qualified. So, they don't have that pressure on them to win games. So, maybe they could slip up.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
But I do think Ivory Coast versus Lesotho, you would still expect them to get a result. And I'm going to give them, I'm going to say a 3-0 win. They've got top quality players playing all around Europe, from Sebastian Haller to Kessie to so many others. And there's just really no excuse for them not to win this game. We then go on to Guinea versus Malawi. Now, of course, as we know, Malawi, I mean, defensively and attacking wise, there were some very impressive moments at Afcon. We're looking at Guinea, once again, they've got that midfield strength. And in my opinion, I've always said this, if you've got a very, very solid midfield, you can almost win every game. So, of course, looking at Guinea, looking at Naby Keita's team versus Mango's team, I do think it will be a highly entertaining game. It could be highly, highly close. So, looking at it, I am very, very tempted to give it a draw, but I do think Guinea are just going to end up taking it 2-1. Now moving on, we've got South Africa versus Zimbabwe, which of course I'm very happy because this is a match week where South Africa cannot lose as we are not playing. Once again, Zimbabwe, same like Kenya, have been disqualified, so we have to move on from that game. Now moving on, we've got Mauritius versus Nigeria. Now of course, looking at Mauritius, I think that they have just been disqualified or kicked out of the Afcon qualifiers as well, along with a lot of the other teams, and they are going to be replaced by Sao Tome and Principe. I think it has to do with their qualification games to get to this point, but I mean, whether it's Mauritius or Sao Tome and Principe, I mean, in fact, looking at Mauritius, out of all African nations in the qualifiers so far, they are the lowest ranked team on the FIFA rankings, but if you replace them with Sao Tome and Principe, they're actually ranked lower than Mauritius. So
Nice.
So of course it just doesn't help their case, and versus a top quality team like Nigeria with some of the best football talent in the entire world, which yes, I'm going to say that claim, I do think Nigeria shouldn't have a single problem with a game like this and they should win it. I'm going to put forward a 4-0 win. I'm going to say it, as I said, defensively they had some brilliant moments, they kept a lot of clean sheets at Afcon in terms of attacking ability. They've just got such a plethora of young brilliant talent and they should not lose this game whatsoever. As I said, they should dominate it. Moving on, we've got Sierra Leone versus Guinea-Bissau. Now, looking at Guinea-Bissau at the time of recording, they have not played their round 1 game, but at the moment of recording, they have scored 6 goals in their first 2 games. So, of course, looking at them attacking-wise, they can be a real threat. We're looking at Sierra Leone, once again, brilliant performances at Afcon. We're going to have to see how these two teams go head-to-head versus each other. I feel like in terms of attacking talent, it's going to be very, very entertaining. It all comes down to whose defense is going to crumble first, and I think it's going to be a very, very even matchup, which is why I do think it will be a 2-2 draw. Now, of course, that takes us to our final game of our round 2 predictions with Liberia versus Morocco. Now, of course, look at these two teams. I mean, it's very obvious that Morocco is the favorites between these two teams, and one thing that just kind of upsets me about Morocco is the fact that they just lost 3-0 to the USA, which of course, looking at the USA, yes, they've got a lot of top quality talent, but once again, not a top football nation in the world compared to some of the top dogs. So for Morocco to lose 3-0, I'm very unconvinced about them at the moment. And it worries me a tiny bit because looking at the upcoming World Cup, they're in the same group as Canada. And if they lose 3-0 to USA, I hope that they don't replicate that in the World Cup. But looking at Morocco versus Liberia, they shouldn't have too many problems. Obviously, looking at Liberia, their first game was versus Zimbabwe, and that was obviously called off, so they've had a bit more time to practice and train. But looking at Morocco, at the end of the day, they've got top quality talent. Although they lost to USA, they should still win this game, and I'm going to put forward a 2-0 win. As I said, they've got top quality talent, so versus Liberia, you would really, really hope that they don't mess up. But ladies and gentlemen, that is it for my Afcon qualifiers round 2 predictions. As I said, there are obviously a lot of games to go through, and you know what, my predictions aren't looking too bad. So at the moment for round 1, as I said, we're very, very early in the competition at the time of recording. I think looking at results so far, I mean, as a whole for round 1, Angola versus Central African Republic, I think I actually predicted Angola to win 2-1, to be honest. I think that is my exact prediction. In fact, I think I also predicted Libya to beat Botswana 1-0, and I predicted Ghana to beat Madagascar. So you know what, at the time of recording, I've gotten all 3 predictions exactly correct. Do I hope or do I think that I can keep it up? Probably not, but you know what, it's not looking bad so far. So of course, we'll have to see how the rest of round 1 along with round 2 goes. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you have any disagreements, let me know in the comment section down below. What predictions would you change and why would you change them? I mean, there's no point in just saying I'm wrong if you're not going to justify why you think I'm wrong. But of course, don't forget to subscribe down below as well if you want to catch more of my content in the future, along with hitting that like button. Can we please get this video to 20 likes? But ladies and gentlemen, this has been your boy Finn, FYNN. Until next time, cheers.